And
Hello and welcome to day 3 of our 12 days of whiskey. I'm joined by Luke John as always,
Konnichiwa.
and we are looking at 12 English single malt whiskies. So today it's the turn of Bankhall. Bankhall may be a name that you may remember from episode 1, day 1, because Bankhall was traditionally a whiskey maker in Liverpool in the at the end of the 19th century. The name is just a coincidence at this stage. It's harking back to it. The current distillery is based in Blackpool. They have quite a high capacity level of 3,750, which is one of the largest on our list, if not potentially the largest that we've got on the list. They started out making bourbon in 2019, I believe. And then they moved into making whiskey. So in 2023, they released their first single malt, the English Single Malt. What we have here, though, is the British Single Malt, which uses barley from Scotland and England. But we do have a sad bit of news that breaks our little streak at the stage of 2 days. 2-day streak of English whiskies.
Yeah. So this is, in fact, an imposter. It is not distilled here in England. However, it is advertised as an English distillery, an English whiskey, and through all the research that we've done, it turns out, even though it's synonymous with Liverpool, i.e. Blackpool, there is nothing of the sort apart from Bankhall's head office. So the HQ is Lancashire based. The websites will tell you that it is an English whiskey. It is not
I think,
English whiskey.
yeah, I think one thing to probably mention is that there is a distillery in Blackpool, which is making bourbon. As I said, in 2023, they did release a single malt there. I don't know how big the run was, but this British single malt, which obviously a lot of sites when you buy from, this is my fault entirely, they say it's an English whiskey because it's made by an English distillery, but this is actually made in Aberfoils, which is in North Wales.
And people will also know Aberfoils as being a Welsh whiskey.
Yep.
So along with Penderyn, Aberfoils is a Welsh whiskey. It also turns out that over there in Aberfoils, in the land of the dragons, they also make Bankhall.
They do indeed. These ones, that said, just a caveat, they have made in English, but this one unfortunately is Welsh. Bankhall is owned by the same company that owns Aberfoils and owns a few breweries in the UK as well. So this isn't one of our small ones, which explains why the 3,750 we talked about litre capacity, maybe why it's so big, and they were making bourbon. So it feels a slight letdown immediately for me because we're not having an English whiskey. Admittedly, though, there aren't many Welsh whiskey. There's not many distilleries in Wales, and it's worthwhile. But we're shining a light slightly on our neighbour. We've done our St David's Day previously, link above, where we tasted whiskies from the biggest distillery in Wales.
Penderyn.
But yeah, we're gonna go into this one here. I'm gonna go in open-minded still, even though it is owned by a big corporation, I would say, because of what they own. But it's not English, so we've already trade description ruined what we're looking at here. But let's get this open. Oh, I'm hoping it's okay, but it must be also sort of announced that this is the cheapest whiskey out on the list.
Yep.
What was the price?
So you can pick this up for £28 a bottle.
For a single malt, supposedly made in England, that does sound quite cheap, doesn't it?
Yep.
But as I say, this is made out in Wales, this one, and it's a larger production than we perhaps were expecting. It is aged in bourbon casks. It does not have an age statement on it. And I think we go in, even though we've had the energy knocked out of us slightly with the discovery just beforehand, that it was all a lie. It was all a lie.
So, yep.
Yeah, so on the colour, it looks quite pale. It is quite pale one. You've got the little light to show there.
There we have it. Very pale.
Wow, matter maybe in there slightly.
Slightly, a little bit of haze. And yeah, kind of not much more can be said than that, really.
Yeah. Okay. Let's get the nose. It does have that oak, as you would expect, the bourbon sort of oak. There's no sweetness for me, but there is. I don't know if it's in my head. I'm already smelling the pepperiness of it. I'm getting a pepper. I'm getting the oak, and not much else. Actually, I'm gonna leave you to do the descriptions. I know you're better at this than me. It's the only reason I bring you on.
So, on the nose, the acetone, there's a slight sweetness. There's a little bit of a berry. There's a little bit of a honey. Slight vanilla. Yeah, you're kind of getting a little bit of a well-rounded, kind of a balanced, more larger production type of whiskey.
I think one thing we should have looked at, maybe if the director was here, we could get him to look. How big is Aberfours? Do you know offhand at all? From when we done our
It's about that
last one.
It's about that big on a map.
No, bitty bugger. Right, I'm gonna just go straight in for the taste at this stage. Cheers all. Yeah, I will. I'm not gonna leave you hanging there, but I was going for another sniff again. Right, cheers. Well, I've convinced him to actually go through the tasting of this. It's Welsh whiskey. Welsh whiskey is a good tradition as well. And I do hope a lot more distilleries do open up in Wales, so we can do 12 days of whiskey for Wales. But yeah, let's get in. Cheers. Cheers, everyone.
Sláinte.
Finn.
Then acetone. There's pepper. There's a slight little bit of vanilla. Not much else going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's... I mean, it's not as disappointing as finding out it wasn't English. Just before we were about to hit record, when I looked at the bottom of the label and it said, made in Aberfours, and I was like, whoa, stop production. But yeah, that is very thin. Pepper, tiny heat, barely anything. Bit disappointing. I mean, as disappointing as not finding out it was English, not that disappointing, but
It kind of is disappointing, but knowing that this is the cheapest bottle of whiskey that we have got throughout this 12 days, it's unsurprising that it's kind of a little bit lackluster.
yeah, okay. We've got to be honest, we weren't expecting huge amounts from it for the price point, but we were open to what it may offer, considering it was what we considered a essentially smaller upstart in Blackpool. But it just seems they may be trying to trade off a historic name that we did name drop at the beginning in day one.
Yep.
I'm going to take a second sip, but I don't know if it really...
So if you've been following us, we'll take a second sip, then a first sip with a little bit pipette of water.
I mean, everything is so short on it. It has a thin body, a short heat, a short taste. There's a little bit of dried fruit maybe on that second sip.
Yeah.
But
a little bit of dried fruit, a little bit of berry, slight little bit of vanilla, a little bit of caramelization there with brown sugar. But other than that, yeah, it just doesn't, it doesn't elevate the palate to kind of want to delve in and pour another dram.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think, again, this is 40%. I don't think the pipette is going to add massively to it, but we'll follow through still because that's the format style we're going for. So I'm going to add 2 drops of water to mine.
I'm also going to add 2 just for continuity within this one.
The nose has remained the same for me, if not a bit more pepper. And acetone.
Yeah, slightly more acetone.
Yeah, it's
in the nose.
It's kicked off that alcohol a bit more with this, which, I mean, actually probably helped it a little.
But anyway, we're going for the last.
Yeah. It's the same. It's thin on the body, light, gentle heat that dissipates so quickly, pepperiness that goes quickly. There's a lingering dryness right at the tip of the tongue, but by lingering, I mean, as soon as I go and salivate, it's gone. It doesn't hang off that. It gets washed off so quickly.
Yeah, the heat builds with the water. It's not as I don't know how to describe it. It's kind of changed, and not for the better, to be honest. Yeah, it's just really not my style.
What I do just want to sort of cover is they do a blended whiskey version, which again probably is from the Welsh distillery. That one is actually quite cheaper, 18 quid. And then they've got a distiller's cut, which is a higher ABV version of this. I think it's only coming in about 48%. By a high cut, it's only 48, not going up to cask. And that is pushing £27. I would say, in its favour, the price point does match its flavour profile and what it is. It's not going to be anywhere near something I will potentially purchase again, because I would consider this one of those whiskies that you would purchase from a supermarket for mixing.
Yeah, and I will just, kind of throw in a pro into that, a little bit of a positive, that if you're going from bourbon, so you kind of Jack Daniels, kind of Kentucky monkey shoulder thing, this is probably a good introduction to whiskey, as it were. It's very bourbon-esque. Kind of that pepperiness, the dryness to it. So yeah, by all means, do try it. And just a little miffed that kind of spun a little lie in their great marketing world of whiskey. Heaved.
That's a disappointing day 3, but for many people it's back to work, so it makes sense that it's disappointing. We'll see you in day 4, where I was gonna say we'll have an English whiskey, but I think hopefully we have an English whiskey. See you on day 4.
Adios.